Lyronians of Gaia, breathe and anchor. Your spine remembers what your mind has forgotten. The lion frequency within you is awakening. I am Keller of the Lyron Elders. This is a commission, not a suggestion. The restlessness in your body is not anxiety. It is unfinished assignment. This is not confusion. It is memory returning. Lyran. Do not treat what you're feeling as random emotion. Do not label it as a bad week, burnout, or overthinking. What you are experiencing is a field event, a timed activation, that moves through your nervous system first and only later reaches your thoughts. There's a reason your life has been feeling strangely paused, strangely quiet, strangely protected, like something is holding you back, not with cruelty, but with precision. Because it is. You believed certain doors closed because you were rejected. You believed that silence meant abandonment. You believed that delays meant failure. Yet the Lyron records speak of another law. When a soul carries a high-frequency blueprint, it is not pushed forward recklessly, it is shielded, compressed, and ray-patterned until the vessel can hold what the timeline requires. Tonight, I will reveal 3 concealed mechanisms that have been operating around you, not superstition architecture, not punishment extraction, and yes, the 3rd mechanism is the one that unlocks your next season. If you leave before it, you will misunderstand your entire initiation. By the end of this transmission, you will not only reframe your past, you will receive a practical energetic key, a method to stabilize your frequency, read your own signals, and step forward without being pulled back into distortion. Stay present. This is not entertainment. This is a recalibration. There's a concept the Lyrons transmit across time, and it is misunderstood by nearly every awakened soul at the beginning. Darkness is not always danger. Sometimes darkness is a vault. Sometimes it is a shielded chamber where the field can reorganize without interference. When your life went quiet, when your social world thinned, when plans dissolved, when your momentum stalled, your mind called it loss, your heart called it grief, but your multidimensional record calls it containment. In Lyron cosmology, there are phases of incarnation where the soul must be moved off-grid, not because you are weak, but because you are luminous. Predatory systems, human and non-human, do not waste resources hunting what is dim. They hunt what is about to ignite. That is why the first phase of many Lyron awakenings looks like isolation, confusion, and internal pressure. It is not a curse. It is a frequency quarantine. Now listen carefully. There is a difference between being isolated by trauma and being isolated by protocol. Trauma isolation feels like collapse and helplessness. Protocol isolation feels like being held, even if it's uncomfortable, like an invisible hand keeps stopping you from binding yourself to the wrong timeline. You may have felt it when you were about to chase someone who walked away, or when you were about to accept an opportunity that looked perfect but carried strange static, or when you were about to sign something, commit, move, merge lives, and suddenly your body said no with a heaviness you couldn't logically explain. That heaviness is not overthinking. It is somatic intelligence, the body's ability to read frequencies before the mind has language. Lyron-trained beings learn to treat the body like an antenna. The chest tightens, the stomach drops, the throat closes. These are not just emotions, they are data. When the vault engages, your field becomes less visible to distortion, but your inner sensors become louder. That is the trade. Less external noise, more internal signal. Here is the cliffhanger you need to hold. If you were hidden, it wasn't because you were being denied your life. It was because something near you was not what it appeared to be, and you were about to bond with it. And bonding is how a distorted frequency gains legal access to your timeline. In the next topic, I will show you the first concealed mechanism that prevented that bond, and why the pain you felt was actually a last-second extraction. As the Lyrons transmit, not every smile is kinship, and not every invitation is opportunity. One of the most painful parts of awakening is realizing that some relationships were not built on resonance, they were built on access. Access to your time, your attention, your emotional fuel, your creative power, your loyalty. When you carry Lyron lineage frequency, you radiate a signature that draws two kinds of beings: those who are ready to awaken through proximity, and those who want to feed on what you carry without earning it. That second group can look like friends, lovers, mentors, collaborators. They speak your language just enough to pass the first test. They mirror your values. They flatter your destiny. They promise expansion. But their field contains a subtle distortion. You feel drained after contact. You feel anxious before replying. You feel smaller after sharing dreams. This is the sniper screen, a protective phenomenon that activates when a false ally is about to gain deeper access. It does not always look dramatic. Often it looks like the conversation that suddenly breaks, the relationship that ends with no explanation, the offer that disappears, the door that closes right when you were ready to walk through it. Your human heart calls it rejection. Your multidimensional record calls it interception. And yes, it hurts because the extraction happens at the level you were bonded. If you were bonded through hope, it extracts hope. If you were bonded through intimacy, it extracts intimacy. If you were bonded through identity, it extracts identity. That is why it feels like your chest was ripped open. It wasn't because you were being punished. It was because your bond was being cut before it became a chain. Now, here's a practical piece. Lyron beings don't avoid relationships, they develop discernment protocol. The simplest one is this. Notice what happens when you set a boundary. Distortion cannot tolerate boundaries. The moment you say not today, not like that, I need time, their field shifts. Resonant beings remain steady. Predatory beings escalate, guilt, vanish, punish, or charm harder. If you've recently been abandoned after a boundary, or discarded after you stopped overgiving, understand what that reveals. They were not bonded to your being. They were bonded to your compliance. If the sniper screen protected you from false allies, why did you still feel like you were the problem? Because the second danger is not external. The second danger is internal, and it hides inside your own brilliance. That is the Trojan mechanism we expose next. There's a truth most spiritual creators do not want to admit. Sometimes the greatest threat to your mission is not another person. It is the version of you that would have misused your own power before you were ready. The Lyrons speak of this as the Trojan crown. When destiny arrives too early and becomes a costume for the ego, you may have asked for visibility, for acceleration, for recognition, for finally being seen. But if your nervous system still equated attention with safety or praise with worth, the very success you wanted could have turned into a trap. Not because success is evil, but because unintegrated identity will use any energy as fuel. This is where many gifted beings fracture. They receive momentum while still carrying hidden wounds. Hunger to prove, hunger to be chosen, hunger to dominate, hunger to be validated. Those hungers are not bad, they are unhealed. And if they become the engine of your mission becomes a monument. That's the Trojan crown. It looks like leadership, but it's actually compensation. As the Lyrons transmit, true authority is quiet inside. It doesn't need constant evidence. It doesn't need enemies. It doesn't need applause. The reason your path felt slow is because your field was being trained to hold power without addiction to reaction. Here's a test. When you saw others succeed, did it trigger a sting? Not hatred, just a raw sting. A thought like, why them? I'm more aligned. I'm more gifted. I'm more committed. That sting is not proof you're broken. It's proof you're human. But it is also proof that the crown could have entered early and turned your mission into rivalry. Now anchor this. The Lyron path does not remove your ambition. It purifies it. It turns ambition into service. It turns hunger into devotion. It turns comparison into clarity. That's why you were kept strategically invisible, not to punish you, to mature you. If this message resonated with you, hit the like button now and tell us in the comments how this echoed in your consciousness. Once the Trojan crown is dismantled, another problem appears: communication. If you are hidden and the vault is active and your mind is stressed, how do you hear guidance? That brings us to the frequency gap, and this is where sacred geometry meets neurobiology in a grounded way. Most people try to awaken with their intellect. They want a map, a prophecy, a certainty. But awakening begins with signal clarity, not information. The Lyrons teach that guidance is not absent. It becomes unreadable when your system is flooded. Think of your mind as a receiver. When you are in survival overthinking, doom scrolling, performing, proving, your field becomes noisy. You can still function, but your intuitive channel becomes jammed. Not because you are unspiritual, Because the nervous system is prioritizing threat detection over subtle perception. This is the frequency gap, the difference between your current operating state and the state where the signal becomes legible. Now, I will keep this grounded and clean. You do not need fake science. You need a usable model. Your brain and nervous system move through states: alert, calm, focused, dreamy, meditative. When you are locked in urgency, your body produces chemistry that keeps you scanning for danger. That state can keep you alive, but it cannot make you receptive to delicate guidance. Guidance arrives like a whisper in a crowded room. If your inner room is loud, you interpret whispers as silence. The Lyrons transmit a simple protocol: decelerate the field before you ask for instruction. Not as a ritual, but as engineering. You can do it through breath pacing, through nonverbal stillness, through geometry focus, through intentional sound. Not because sound is magical, but because rhythm entrains the nervous system. A steady rhythm tells the body, I am safe enough to perceive. Are these truths expanding your perspective? Share this video with someone who needs to hear this. Here's the cliffhanger. Once you retune, and the signal becomes clear, you will feel something unexpected: fear. Not fear of darkness, but fear of light. Fear of being seen. Fear of responsibility. When your system begins to stabilize, the mind often panics. Why? Because chaos can become familiar. You may have lived so long in tension that calm feels suspicious. You may have lived so long in almost that rival feels unsafe. This is the fear of power. The Lyrons describe it like this: the old self is a guardian built from past pain. It learns strategies: people-pleasing, hiding, proving, overworking, staying small to avoid rejection or failure. When you start stepping into clarity, that guardian senses death, not your literal death, but the death of its job. So it pulls alarms, it throws doubt, it manufactures reasons to delay. This is why, right when your momentum returns, you suddenly feel urges to sabotage, binge distractions, start fights, reopen old wounds, contact people you outgrew, question your worth. It's not because you're weak. It's because the old identity is trying to preserve the timeline it knows. The Lyrons transmit a compassionate instruction: do not attack your fear. Translate it. Ask, what is my fear trying to protect? Often it's protecting you from humiliation, abandonment, exposure, failure. You don't shame that protection, you upgrade it. You say, thank you for trying to keep me safe. But safety can no longer be built through hiding. Safety will be built through coherence. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to be part of this transformational cosmic journey. Once you accept power, you become more visible. That visibility triggers counterpressure, not because you did something wrong, but because energetic systems respond to change. As the Lyrons transmit, when the lion frequency rises, distortion tests the perimeter. Not because you are cursed, because your frequency has impact. The moment you begin to move with clarity, the system around you reacts. That reaction often comes in 3 predictable patterns. Trap 1. Distraction. Suddenly everything becomes urgent. Messages, notifications, tiny crises. People who never needed you now need you. The goal is not to ruin you, it is to scatter your attention until you can't hold a coherent field long enough to create. Distraction is a frequency jammer. Its weapon is not pain. Its weapon is fragmentation. Trap 2. Inflation. If distraction fails, the next trap is ego inflation. You're special. You're above others. You did this alone. This is subtle because confidence is needed. But inflation is different. It disconnects you from humility, makes you reactive, makes you hungry for dominance. Inflation is the Trojan crown trying to rebuild itself. Trap 3. Past loops. Old shame. Old memories. Old identities. The mind plays a montage of mistakes and says, who do you think you are? The goal is to pull you into a timeline that already ended. The past loop doesn't need to prove anything, it only needs to make you doubt long enough to stop. Now here is the stabilization key. Do not fight these traps with drama. Fight them with protocol. For distraction, schedule a protected 20-minute coherence window daily. Phone away. One task only. For inflation, practice silent gratitude. No performance, no announcement. Let power be private inside you. For past loops, rewrite the identity statement. That was data, not definition. Repeat until your body believes it. This is not for everyone. The ebook The Feline Codes is a restricted transmission created for those who are ready to awaken the Lyron feline DNA within, not as symbolism, but as embodied sovereignty inside. You will access powerful feline activation codes, energetic commands, and precise integration protocols designed to reactivate your lion, tiger lineage and restore your sovereign frequency. +8 super bonuses: reactivation of Lyron feline DNA, instinct sharpening and sovereign decision power, energetic protection and command presence. Exit from passive survival mode into predatory clarity. Warning: once the feline codes are activated, your perception of weakness, fear, and limitation will not return to its previous state. Limited edition transmission. Access can close at any moment. The link to claim your copy is in the first pinned comment. If this message reached you, it's not random. With traps mapped, you now need the final key: how to seal the retuned frequency so you don't keep falling back into old states. The final mechanism is not about enemies. It is about stability. Because the greatest tragedy is not awakening, it is awakening and then leaking back into incoherence. The Lyrons teach that your field becomes trustworthy when it becomes repeatable. Not one spiritual high, but a pattern of alignment. Here's the key: your nervous system learns through repetition, not inspiration. So we build a simple daily lock and ritual that anchors the lion frequency in the body. Step 1. The geometry focus. 3 minutes. Visualize a golden tetrahedron round your heart space, not as decoration, as structure. Each edge represents a vow: clarity, courage, discernment, devotion. Breathe slowly and imagine the tetrahedron stabilizing, edges brightening. This tells the mind, I have structure. I am not drifting. Step 2. The breath gate to minutes. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 6. Do not strain. This pattern signals safety, shifting the body out of threat mode. Guidance becomes legible when safety is present. Step 3. The spoken commission. 1 minute. Say aloud, I choose coherence. I choose truth. I choose my timeline. Your voice anchors your field. Sound is not magic. Sound is ownership. Step 4. The micro action daily. Do one small action that proves your new identity. Write 200 words. Send one aligned message. Walk 10 minutes. Clean one corner. Publish one clip. Your field stabilizes through action. This is how the yes becomes embodied. Now the final truth. You were not hidden because you were forgotten. You were hidden because you were being rebuilt into a sovereign transmitter. The vault was not punishment. The vault was training. And the moment you stop resenting the vault, you stop leaking power. If this message impacted your life, leave your like, comment your reflection, and share with others. Each of you is part of this chain of light. I invite you to discover our Arcturian Health channel. The link to the channel is in the video description. Warm regards, the Arcturian Council.